Viewers, now we are joined by Dr. Vineet Aggarwal. Dr. Vineet Aggarwal needs no introduction. He is a very popular podcaster. More than that, he's done his medicine, he's a doctor, he's done his management, and he's an expert on mythology, Indic civilizational, and wears many hats actually. So without wasting any time, let me first introduce Dr. Vineet Aggarwal. Dr. Vineet, thank you for your time. Thank you for speaking to Times Now.
My pleasure completely, and wishing everyone who's watching a very happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali to you too. So let's get started. Let's begin by talking about Diwali. I'm sure you've read the commentary around Diwali, the celebrations, festivities. Different people have different takes on how it should be celebrated. What do you make of that?
Unfortunately, I've seen that a lot of people today, a lot of us in India, we don't really read our scriptures, right? So we don't really know what is exactly mentioned in the Purans and other scriptures as to the celebrations. So there's so much debate about use of fireworks, whether it's just a festival of lights, whether it's turning to commercial, etc., so on and so forth. But actually, it's one of the biggest festivals, as mentioned in the Purans. And it's actually a 6-day festivity, which starts from the 12th day, which is the Vatsa Dwadashi, and continues till Bhai Dooj, which we call in the north, it's called Bhai Dooj. In the east, it's Bhai Phota. In Maharashtra, it's Bhau Beej. So it's a 6-day festival, which, and there's different aspects to it. So we'll have to go through each of the days to understand these aspects. We can look into it.
Let me then, sort of broad base this conversation and let's talk about Sanatan. Sanatan is something that people say has always existed. It has, obviously. But the younger generation, so to say, is now beginning to talk about it. There was a sense of hesitation, for lack of a better word, that has now gone. Thanks to people like you and, others like you who are, talking about it, explaining things, busting myths. What is Sanatan? If you were to break it down for someone who does not know what is Sanatan, what would you tell them?
I think it's very simple. It's not very rocket science. Sanatan means in Sanskrit it means eternal. So what we call Sanatan Dharma it actually means the eternal way of life. Dharma doesn't mean religion. It does not translate to religion. It means the way of life. So dharma may be different from for every person. For a householder, it's a different dharma. For a sannyasi, it's a different dharma. For a student, it's a different dharma. For a grihast, it's a different dharma. So what it basically encompasses, it's a very broad term which covers everything that you need to do, your duties as well as your rights, while living in a society holistically. That's what is covered in Sanatan Dharma.
So are you saying that, someone can have a different religion other than being a Hindu, but can still follow the Sanatan way of life? Is that what you're saying?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Even within the umbrella of Hinduism, you find various sects, right? Some believe in idol worship, some believe in temple visiting, some believe in only Vedic mode of worship, some do not pray at all. So everything is allowed in Hinduism, in Sanatan Dharma. Every person needs to find their own way to reach God.
Now, there's something that, came up while I was discussing this, that, I'll be having a conversation with you. Many people said that, do ask him about Manusmriti and how people sort of think that Manusmriti is a regressive text, etc., etc. What is your view, given the kind of outrage that we see from time to time?
Honestly, I have combed through a lot of scriptures and I've realized that Manusmriti is actually not even relevant for Kali Yuga. There's different law books that have been mentioned in the Smritis. There's Smriti Shastras that talk about the laws that are applicable for each Yuga, right? So there's a Yuga cycle for those who do not know. So there's Satyug, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali. So Manusmriti was relevant for the Satyuga. For Dwapar, there's a different set of rules. For Kali, there's a different set of rules. And in fact, there's a book called Parashar Smriti, which is relevant for Kali Yuga. So this entire debate, I think, primarily comes from the fact that the Britishers used just this one text to codify the Hindu law. So it has nothing to do with the practice of it or how applicable it is to today's time. In fact, the Parashar Smriti, which is the law book for Kali Yuga, it very clearly says that the laws should change with time. And if people believe that the laws that have been mentioned here are not fitting the social milieu, the king, along with 10 learned people, should sit together and form new laws. I think that's what's important to understand, rather than debate about scriptures that are relevant for a previous time period, probably, but do not fit in today's scenario.
So things that haven't evolved must, go through that process, and that
Most
is the
certainly.
beauty of Sanatan, is what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And
So,
that is why it is eternal.
right. Dr. Vineet, because we're having this conversation on Diwali, you see this debate on firecrackers, that, firecrackers were not mentioned in the scriptures, so why should people push for crackers, etc.? Your take on that?
Again, I would go by what the scriptures say. So the Skand Puran clearly mentions the use of something called Ulka Hasta. And Ulka, if you understand a bit, Ulka Pind is what we call a meteor, like the Halley's
Right.
Comet, etc. So Ulka means a meteor. It's something flashing through the sky. And Ulka Hasta means a meteor that you're carrying in your hand. So it's clearly a reference to some sort of a firework. It could be, like a fulgari. It could be, something which was shot into the sky. But there is a mention of the use of these Ulka Hasta on the 14th and the 15th nights, which is the Deepavali and the Choti Diwali or the Narak Chaturdashi. So both these nights, you are supposed to use these, and they are meant to show the way to the Pitris to go back to their loka. So it is there in the scriptures.
Apart from what we discussed about Manu Smriti, Dr. Vineet, I'm sure you're aware of the political commentary around Sanatan for various reasons. Now, people say it is for essentially vote bank purposes, etc., etc. By that, I mean Sanatan has been compared to leprosy, dengue, HIV, whatnot. A chief minister of a Congress-ruled state compared Sanatan to hate. He said, Sanatan is linked to hate, etc. When such kind of commentary is thrown at people like you, who've, gone deep to understand the essence of Sanatan, what is your response, or what would be your response?
So I think I would not get defensive. I would just attribute it to the ignorance of actually what Sanatan is. They will, any of these people who have such thoughts about Sanatan, if they just open couple of scriptures, I would not say just read the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, but the Purans are also a source of great knowledge. Upanishads are full of wisdom. If you manage to go through at least one scripture in your life, you will understand that whatever your perspectives are about Sanatan, what you think it is, what you have heard it is, what you have believed all your life, or what you have been told what it is completely different from what is actually mentioned in our scriptures. It's a very beautiful, holistic way of life, which teaches you to live together, not in harmony, not just with the humans, but with the animals, with the plants, with the entire universe. The whole idea about Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam comes from our scriptures. So it's absurd to say that it is elitist or it is discriminatory. Yes, there were some practices that went overboard and unchecked, probably because of the hunger for power. But that is not the source of it. The scriptures are not the source of it. It's the execution which may be flawed at some level, at some point of time. But you cannot continue blaming it forever. There's a huge reform movement which happened over the years, over the past decades, and a lot of things. I don't think any religion has evolved so much, as much as Sanatan over its thousands of years of history.
Uh, I'm asking you this, because you're also a doctor, a student of medicine, to be more specific. When, in a country like ours, Hindu faith has been subjected to so much of scrutiny. I'll give you one example, and this is something, that actually stares at all of us, that here is one faith in which places of worship are controlled by the state. In no other religion does the state control their places of worship. So the money which is essentially meant for the deity, given by the devotees, they are used by the government in power, the party in power, for whatever they want, even if it means welfare of those who are not faithfuls, believers.
Very true. Very true. I think it's a very pertinent question to be asked in today's day and time. It may have happened at the time of the Britishers when first, these rules were set up, but there's absolutely no sense to have them continue today. When the governments are free, they represent the majority, but I think it's the people who have to voice out these things and, force their representatives to take corrective action. It should not be allowed to go on forever, because the money which is donated by the devotees to the temples is, for all practical purposes, it should be utilized for the development of that temple. And you see some very frequently visited temples are just in such a sorry condition, partly because a huge chunk of the fund goes to the government, and they're not free to utilize it as per their requirements. So I think it's a necessity, of today's day and time. It should happen, but I also feel that there's an obligation for the people to speak up. It's not just the sarkar, the governments, the judiciary. They would only do it when we force them to do it or when we ask them to do it.
Dr. Vineet, can Sanatan and science go hand in hand?
So interestingly, that's how my journey began into Sanatan, into the exploration of our culture and our scriptures. And I started way back with a blog which is called Decode Hindu Mythology. Mythology is a word; it's a loaded word today. A lot of people don't like it, but back in 2011, it was okay to use it. And in which I have explored various aspects of our culture through the scientific lens, through the lens of logic. And it's a very small thing that we don't understand, that most of the stories in our Purans are very symbolic and they teach us deep scientific lessons. So just, a mention of maybe, the sun riding a chariot with 7 horses, just to give you a small example. It's very, it sounds very fantastic that, the sun god is riding a chariot which has only one wheel, which has 12 spokes, and the chariot is driven by 7 horses. But if you just use your logic, you realize they're talking about the solar year, which is divided into 12 months. And the 7 days could be the days of the week, or they could be the 7 colors of the rainbow, the Vibgyor. So such beautiful scientific basis exists for most of the stories that are mentioned in the scriptures. So I feel science has a huge role to play in the foundation as well as the execution of the rituals today.
For people who now advocate Sanatan or talk about its virtues, values, are also labeled as Sanghi. I'm sure you're aware of it. So how do you live with that when such things are thrown at you?
I think, again, a lot of people don't understand what a Sanghi means. Is probably aimed at calling you a stooge of RSS, which is the Sangh, but like for me, I have had absolutely no touch with RSS since my childhood. And, I do know a few people who work in RSS, but I do not have any connections myself. So if you call me Sanghi, I am not really bothered, because I feel RSS is doing a great job in whatever they're doing, in any calamity that happens from what I am aware. It's just that probably they are not too media savvy, or they're not too good with marketing themselves, and they do get labeled for unfairly, I feel. But I personally, I don't mind. I think it's up to you what you want to, accept as a insult, or if you think that this is something which actually defines a certain level of maturity or thought process about the nation, which the RSS is doing.
Okay, Dr. Vineet, this has been a fascinating conversation, short and sweet. Anything that you would, like to tell our viewers on Diwali?
I would just like to highlight, Pranesh, that it's a beautiful festival. Please do not get bogged down by propaganda, by semantics, fireworks, sweets. Do whatever you want, as long as it is not harming anyone, as long as you're not overdoing it, and as long as you are spreading joy and harmony, especially children. I think it's a beautiful festival. Celebrate it with your loved ones. Spend good time together. And wishing all of you at the studio and your audience a very happy Deepavali again.
Thank you. Happy Diwali to you too, Dr. Vineet. Pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.